control. No. So when you look at this, no Thought Seize in the deck. He still is kind of in the Jeskai mold. Yep. All his cheap stuff is just removal.
Yeah, and with a mix of counter spells, we have a main deck Spell Snare, main deck Counter Squall, 4 Cryptic Commands. Thoughtseize doesn't make a ton of sense in your Cryptic Command deck. Okay. You're going to be able to leverage the bounce and the counter spell against whatever your opponent's playing. So you would rather just have them cast a spell. You use Cryptic Command to either counter it or just turn the tempo in your favor. You don't necessarily need to see their hand. Taking a card out of the hand that they didn't spend any mana on is kind of restrictive when you're casting this 4-mana spell.
And actually, against Storm, I kind of like having these black cards over the white ones that Jeskai would offer.
Yeah, Path to Exile doesn't really do a ton in this matchup.
Tasigur seems great.
Yeah, Tasigur allows you to actually really turn up the heat, be kind of aggressive. Fatal Push is quite a bit better against Baral than Path to Exile is. Kolaghan's Command, really not much of a player in the matchup, though making them discard a card can push them off of their critical mass.
So Bryant Cook, we see Sleight of Hand here on turn 2. I was wondering if he'd go for a mana creature, but in a lot of ways that we see, he's just going to build up on lands for now.
Yeah, that gets the Scalding Tarn. Your mana creature not very likely to stick around.
Now, I know you've played a lot of some Grixis control at various points in Modern. What are your thoughts on just kind of the real, the 4 Snapcaster Mage and a stack of spells style Grixis?
I was pretty off it immediately with the unbanning of Bloodbraid Elf. I think that card,
that'd be hard.
It made the Jund matchup considerably worse, and also immediately out of the gates there were a lot of Valakut decks that were just casting Bloodbraid Elf, which made that matchup very bad. Now when we're settling back in, a lot of players believing Humans is the best deck, and most of the non-Humans matchups you play being Jeskai control, where you have a really good idea of their deck list, you can gear towards beating both of those decks, which I think you can do very effectively. There's going to be some fringe things that you're going to be bad against, and that's kind of the nature of playing a straight control deck. Though even in those matchups, sometimes you can land a fast Tasigur and really right the ship, turn things around and win quickly. There are things to like about this deck. And, really, we haven't seen too many Bloodbraid Elves recently. We have a few players holding on to Jund, and Jund did recently win an Open, though, if we've been watching today, a lot of Spirits, a lot of Humans, a lot of Jeskai control.
Right. Tasigur isn't me the play here from Ted, and not a bad one. This is something that Jeskai can't really do, is kind of just get a beater online early.
Right.
And especially as Storm has moved away from Remand. On Bryant's side, 0 copies.
And I will say that the Search for Azcanta to fairy versions of Jeskai, the deck moving away from Geist of St. Traft puts points in Grixis' favor. Geist kind of forced you to acknowledge and respect this cheap hexproof creature which you don't have a lot of access to and would often just win the game. That when you can actually just lean on Counter Squall being good against all of their spells, the matchup gets quite a bit better for Grixis. Counter Squall also going to be pretty good in this matchup. It's a very strong spell against Storm.
Back over to Bryant. Baral with 1 mana up is his play, so he's going to put a little bit of pressure on.
And previously we covered Caleb Shear was only playing 1 copy of Remand in the Storm deck, and I'm looking for Remands in Bryant Cook's deck and not seeing them.
Yeah, he has 3 in the sideboard, actually. None in the main. Which, if you have those slots, makes sense to me. It's only good in a couple matchups now in Modern.
Yeah, I don't want to Remand the Humans deck.
Right, there's a lot of matchups I don't want it. Now, 3 spots in the sideboard, that's some valuable real estate.
Yeah.
And Ted plays a land and passes back, and now Bryant says, looks like it's time to make some plays. We'll start with Pyretic Ritual. Frequently, he got to untap with the Baral. This makes sense.
Right, and if Ted is just passing and allowing Bryant to untap with Baral, I got to figure he's not going to have meaningful interaction on this combo turn.
No, Storm to 2, up to 5 red for Bryant. Gifts Ungiven. Storm 3, down to 3 red floating.
Guess that's a bingo square for me. Gifts Ungiven, cast for 3 mana.
No, now you win on more stuff.
Got a lot of 4 in a rows.
I don't have any of those yet. At some point, though.
Someday. On a long enough timeline.
We just got to get someone playing the rack on camera. Hexproof creature with 5 power. This is dumb. This board's full of a bunch of decks no one plays. Gifts ungiven being resolved right now from Bryant Cook. It's kind of surprising to me that Ted has so little interaction this turn. His body language makes it seem like he has nothing.
It sure looks like nothing. I mean, minimally, I would be amazed if he was sitting on a spot removal spell for that Brawl, so you got to figure that's not available. And
but now he just resolved gifts.
Right,
so,
exactly.
Like, he's not sitting on a counter there either, right?
Yeah, you would have pulled the trigger on a counter spell. So if I'm Bryant Cook, I'm looking at just getting that Ritual Past in Flames pile, because I'm very confident that I can just cast Rituals, cast Past in Flames, and just have that deterministic Grape Shot win.
I'm looking at Ted's list. Hard to think what he might have. I guess he could have some Logic Knots.
Yeah, there's a good amount of floating mana.
Could have an Electrolyze.
I mean, he's playing 4 Cryptic Commands.
Could have a lot of Cryptics. And we do see the mana pile, all 3 Rituals and Past in Flames. This is the standard go-to for Storm. In the non-interactive matchups, this is what they get. Mm-hmm. At this point, he's kind of assuming Ted's not interacting.
Yeah, so in the deck list, we have 4 Cryptic Commands, 3 Kolaghan's Commands, 2 Search for Iskanta, a Damnation. These are the kind of stuff, an Electrolyze, second Tassiger, Snapcaster Mages. These cards could all easily be stranded in Ted's hand.
Yeah, and that'll make sense. It's going to give Bryant to try to deny mana. Puts the 2 big Rituals in the bin, gives him Manamorphose, Past in Flames. But even now, it's already just on board there. You see Manamorphose. He's going to decide what he wants to do with it, but he already can use the Past in Flames out of the yard. Makes red-blue off Manamorphose, draws a card. Spell number 4. He's kind of just waiting until he gets to a good spot for Past in Flames.
Yeah, and as far as cards that could be in Ted's hand that there has not been a great window for just yet, Logic Knot's going to be the one. So it looks like Logic Knot for 2 would be available with the Thoughtscour in the graveyard plus the 3rd land. So Bryant wants to pay mind to that. So you cast Past in Flames for 3 mana from here. You have 2 mana up. Your first Ritual is vulnerable to a counter spell.
Well,
but then you just have to cast the rest of your Rituals.
Well, no, he just Logic Knot the Past in Flames for 2. And then if you pay...
Right, yep, that would run you out.
Yeah, and that's what he's going to do. And if Bryant pays, he'll be out of mana.
Yeah, you need another Ritual to be good from there.
He's just going to let it get countered. And then make Goblin Electromancer. Has Ted gotten out of the turn? I mean, it's just out of the turn. 2 mana creatures in play is still very scary on the graveyard Bryant managed to make. And yeah, it looks like Ted will survive this turn. He'll get to untap. Next turn, Bryant untaps with 4 lands, 2 mana creatures, and a stocked graveyard. We'll see if Ted can fight back.
We'll find out if Ted will have access to a Cryptic Command on the following turn.
Swings for 4, puts Bryant down to 8.
Looks like there's a Watery Grave available for the 4th land here.
Yeah.
I would just assume to shock for that.
Thoughtscour, Snapcaster Mage, Logic Knot. All in Ted's hand. It's down to 13.
Yeah, from just 2 cards in hand, there is a Past in Flames, but 1 counterspell covers that. Bryant's not going to be able to assemble a lethal Grape Shot, and the Tassiger is applying very significant pressure on Bryant's life total.
Yeah, Ted may be okay here. Here is... Ooh, what do we have?
He is playing a... He's got Perilous Voyage as his bounce spell.
Yeah, Perilous Voyage from Ixalan. Bounces an online permanent. I believe its converted mana cost was 2 or less, you scry to.
Your guess is as good as mine. I'm not a Perilous Voyage aficionado.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to get to scry. Boom. Yeah, that'll bounce the Tassiger.
It's good at protecting your mana creatures, you see. Because you get to scry when you have to protect them from a removal spell.
It's better than Disperse. Opt cast by Bryant Cook. Attacks Ted down to 10. It's actually we'll see. It could be hard for Ted to make Tassiger again. He'll start with a Thoughtscour. It's hard to make a Tassiger again and leave up Cryptic. And then he will Electrolyze down the Goblin Electromancer. So maybe not. Up to 5 cards. I'll stand corrected.
These 4 Thought Scour decks, you always think you have Tasigur covered more than you do. Now,
Yeah.
Tasigur plus Logic Knot backup, that's a bigger ask.
Bolt for the Baral. And he is short on Tasigur Cryptic at the moment because of that Lightning Bolt. And opt by Bryant. It looks like Ted's actually just going to wait so that he can hold up that Cryptic.
Yep.
It slows the Tasigur down a turn, but a strong play here.
Yeah, and he has Tasigur Logic Knot, but there's just not that much graveyard available. So I like the patience here.
Yeah, 2 delve cards. You can only delve away so much. Bryant will say go.
And the way the graveyard filled up here is actually something that I miss about playing these decks. A lot of people would board in Relica Progenitus against you, thinking it's very good. And then one turn, you just Thought Scour, crack a fetch land, and they're just sitting there with their Relic, and then your graveyard's gone because you cast Tasigur, and then they're just dead to your Tasigur.
Yeah, that was the hard part about playing against the deck, because, you'd end step Thought Scour, and you'd have 4 cards in your graveyard, and I think, do I just need to pop Relic right now?
Right.
Before you untap? Maybe that's the play.
And then you pop it, and then I just cast another Thought Scour.
Yeah. Right, you have to just be prepared to just, as soon as they have 3 or 4 cards, pop it and just accept that's what the card does in the matchup.
Right.
And if that's what it does, it's only a medium card.
Right.
End step, Snapcaster Mage, Thoughts. Oh, no, Snapcaster Mage, Lightning Bolt, rather.
This
Bryant
is
goes down
lethal
to...
pretty quick.
Yeah, I was going to say Thought Scour, but never mind. Maybe we don't even need that Tasigur.
Well, another Lightning Bolt would do it. I'm not seeing one in the holdings.
Ted will remake Tasigur, delving away the graveyard. And there go all the cards. I guess to keep one.
And with Cook so light on resources, you'd have to have some very specific things, even to Grape Shot with Ted's low life total of 7.
Yeah, and it's really clear that Ted has Cryptic, too, from Bryant's side. There was a turn where both players knew he had a Tasigur, and he just didn't cast one. And there's a reason. And this is the Desperation Storm turn.
It's now or never.
Ritual. He has 1 card left. Ted has a Cryptic.
Yeah, he has Past in Flames and Graveyard. That's certainly getting hit by the Cryptic.
Yep. Here's Past in Flames for 5. Ted says, hold on, spend the mana. I'm going to counter it. And that should send us to a second game.
Yeah, Ted fetching in response. Even with the Cryptic command, Storm will be high enough to make Grape Shot lethal. And, technically, this is the correct way to spend your mana for all the difference it'll make.
And it looks like he's just going to go Logic Knot for 2.
I guess that does
Yeah,
it.
I mean, Ryan, okay, he can pay, but then...
Right, then he has no mana.
Yeah. Ted Gibbons takes game 1.
And we're going to go to sideboard here. Bryant Cook is going to need some help, as you got to figure the risk control deck's going to get better.
Yeah, so I haven't seen this matchup. I'm going to assume it plays out similarly to Jeskai Control. So when I'm looking at that, I see Bryant Cook saying, hey, 4 pieces of the puzzle, and even to a certain point, 3 Remand, all seem like they're good cards here.
Yeah, remanding Tasigur specifically feels real nice, and it fights counter wars very effectively. Empty the Warrens also plays pretty well in this matchup. That's pretty much what you're looking at here. The 3 Remand, the 4 pieces, the 2 empties. Those all seem reasonable. For Ted Gibbons, we have 2 Surgical Extraction, 2 Anger of the Gods, 2 Collective Brutality, a Nihil Spellbomb, a Ceremonious Rejection, and is it Staticaster? A Keranos God of Storms, a Mendelian Click, a Dispel, an Engineer Explosives, a Disdainful Stroke, and a Counter Squall. There's a good mix of stuff. There's things that are always good. The Nihil Spellbomb, always good. The Dispel, always good. The Mendelian Click, that one, I'm going to say always good.
Counter Squall is always good?
Always good. Disdainful Stroke is good enough. It doesn't catch pieces of the puzzle, but it catches Past in Flames, which is a pretty big deal. Collective Brutality is a little bit dicey, honestly. You get a 2-mana Duress, which is often pretty mana inefficient in matchups like this. It can do a pretty good job, though. And then you have a couple options as ways to answer Empty the Warrens. You could reach for Is It Staticaster and or Engineered Explosives. Both of these cards seem pretty reasonable to me. You can also see a plan involving Surgical Extraction as an answer to Grape Shot. Once that card's gone, it's really hard for you to lose.
Yeah, it's a lot of sideboard options. I guess looking at his main deck, I'm trying to think how much he wants to go in on this. He's got 2 Fatal Pushes, which can go. He has 4 Lightning Bolts. Maybe he wants some number of them. He also has 3 Kolaghan's commands. I'm not really excited about any of those cards here.
Yeah, the Kolaghan's commands are pretty poor. The Lightning Bolts are nice because they answer mana creature, and also when you just get on your proactive plan, exactly. If the game is going short, the Lightning Bolt's generally going to be good. Either you have Lightning Bolt for reach to win the game very quickly, or it covers a mana creature and makes the game go a little bit longer.
Yeah, and I just know there's 3 removal spells in the main: a Damnation, a Dreadborn, a Terminate. Could see him moving off all of those to kind of just go toward these cards.
You're not huge on those kind of effects. And then depending on my configuration, when I play Grixis decks, I do shave Cryptic Command in this matchup, just because it costs so much mana. When you have a sideboard that's so efficient and good so often, like the cards available to Gibbons in his sideboard, Cryptic Command costs too much mana relative to these cards, even if it has better windows.
Yeah, what I do like about Cryptic, if I were to keep it, I almost want to just like, so if Bryant takes the strategy of just trading turns back and forth, I almost just start wanting to do stuff like on end step bounce drawing his lands, and it's just because I don't want to actually I don't want Cryptic on the interactive turn because that takes the place of too many other cards.
There are games where that is the play. You have to be wary when they get that 4 mana of them just casting Gifts Ungiven in response.
Sure.
But games where they miss a land drop or you're on the play and you just bounce their 3rd land, that can be a pretty big deal.
Overall, though, impressed with the Grixis control deck. Like I said, this matchup plays a lot like Jeskai v Storm, but it looks more solid for the Grixis deck than what I see out of Jeskai.
Yeah.
Tasigur was very good that game, and the Tasigur Thought Scour package better than I think what Jeskai normally presents here.
Yeah, and the matchups where Tasigur is good, it is really good. I mean, Gurmag Angler is a pretty heavily played card in both Modern and Legacy. Grixis Control, in Modern specifically, about the only deck that actually wants to activate Tasigur sometimes. This is not so much the matchup for it, because much like that Cryptic Command bouncing a landline, when you tap 4 mana, the Storm player will often Gifts Ungiven in response, and that can be a pretty bad spot for you. But in matchups like against Jeskai Control, against other decks where the game becomes really low resource and you make it out with the Tasigur, activating that card can generate a lot of advantage. You also have nice synergies with Logic Knot, where once you have Tasigur active and you get to Logic Knot something, you get to remove all the bad cards from your graveyard. Your Thought Scours, your Serum Visions if you had them. Well, he's actually not playing any Serum Visions. Search for Escanta got him off that one, I suppose.
Yeah. Serum Visions and Thought Scours is a lot.
Yeah.
So he's just on all 4 Scours. And we're here for game number 2. These post-board games can have a real different texture to them. Bryant cashing in some cantrips early. Going to be looking for cards like Pieces of the Puzzle. And another sleight of hand.
And we're building up to Bryant Cook possibly having that turn 3 Pieces of the Puzzle. That'd be a good window for Gibbons to have Counter Squall at the ready. Man, I miss casting Counter Squall.
You can just cast Negate.
It's not the same.
It's like the same.
You don't get it.
Why do I care about their life total?
That's the only number that matters.
Oh man, we were playing different games. You know what? I've been playing Standard recently. On my life pad, I just have 1 column.
That's the worst.
That's my life. It's my life total. Got it. What are they at? Yeah, I don't know. Probably 20. Did they gain life? No? Okay, cool. Then they're at 20.
You Azorius control players.
Yeah. The fun ones is when you're playing the mirror, and then you're just like, do we even need a life pad? And someone's like, you got to track energy off those glimmers. I'm like, do you got any cards that use energy? And both are like, no. I guess so. And then, because it's the rules, we get out. There's a score pad at the end of the match with just a bunch of random 2 and 4, 6 written on them, and that's about it.
Just draw a bunch of lightning bolts.
I don't know. No, we're not. You're missing it.
That's a reasonable. No, you draw with your pen a
bunch of
picture of a
bolts.
lightning bolt for every energy.
I didn't even like draw to cast them. I was like, yeah, you know. Sure, that sounds.
This is my kind of
Energy
game, though.
unspent.
Grixis Control versus Storm.
Just
Bunch of lands happening, no action forced, and then one day there's going to be a real big turn.
Yeah, some players are going to go for some incremental advantage here.
Gibbons a bit light on Spell Snare for my taste, but you know.
You know, he has more than he has some number of them.
Yeah,
He has one.
One in the main deck.
Yeah. Manamorphose from Bryant. This is main phase. Do it again.
Storm's at 2.
Okay.
Don't think this is the
He
combo turn.
he hasn't reached for the storm counter yet. Empty the Warrens. Okay. This will make 6 goblins.
Gibbons is ready for that. Engineered explosives at the front of the hand.
Yeah.
Though Cook spent no resources. He cast 2 mana more.
That was nice, wasn't it? Just it's a 4 mana, make 6 1/1s.
Yeah, so if you trade this with explosives, it's actually just a 1-for-1.
Yeah, and Bryant might even get in some damage depending on when Ted feels comfortable spending the mana. Rather than explosives crack it on his turn before the attack, he might play it, take 6, and then pop it on end step.
Right. There are hands where if you have a 4th mana source, it's really comfortable to just activate the explosives before the goblins can come across. If you have access to like Lightning Bolt, Spell Snare, even just a 2 mana counterspell from this position, you're pretty safe just leaving that up.
What do you feel about the possibility that had Ted, when he drawn explosives, just immediately making it on 0?
That informs Cook's decisions too much.
Yeah. He probably wouldn't have made this play then.
Right.
And here's the swing. And Gibbons will go ahead and pop the explosives. So a bit exposed on the mana front here. We'll see if Bryant wants to take advantage.
Yeah, notably, Gibbons not playing any copies of Jace the Mind Sculptor, so he can't do something like get rid of that explosives down the line if it doesn't end up being that kind of game.
And no punishment. Bryant just makes Sleight of Hand and actually misses a land drop.
Yeah, so he's pretty heavy on spells, but until the Storm player is able to leverage just natural mana off of lands, plus rituals for a Past in Flames turn without a mana creature, there's not much they can do. And from 4 lands, it's hard to have a turn that's much more than casting a mana creature. Once Gibbons gets up to 6 mana, he can start covering 2-3 things in one turn.
Yeah, Bryant opted into opt there. Now goes for Serum Visions. It looks like he's just having trouble finding lands. So despite casting a lot of cantrips, he isn't going anywhere. Now he double topped off that last one, which makes me think we might be seeing something.
Looks like he has a 7-card hand and a pieces of the puzzle in it, so he's going to be a little patient on that.
Snapcaster Mage, end step from Ted. Lightning Bolt will send Bryant down to 12.
Yeah, I like this play. Just get aggressive. Especially if he's drawn Counter Squall or he's up to 2 copies post sideboard, he can be a little bit more aggressive.
Right, he untaps and attacks Bryant down to 10. So if Bryant has 7 cards, no lands in his hand, and double topped on that Serum Visions, I feel like this next turn is meaningful.
Yeah, there was an interesting decision there for Gibbons. He played Field of Ruin as a land for turn, and you know that Cook wants the 2 top cards of his deck.
I could have just used it.
Yeah, given that you very frequently want 2 pieces of interaction, and it looks like there is a Cryptic command available, frequently that Field of Ruin would put you off of casting Cryptic plus something. If he doesn't specifically have a Logic Knot or Counter Squall and another point of interaction, then that Field of Ruin line is just kind of off the table. But if he had, say, Logic Knot plus Lightning Bolts to cover a mana creature, I'd be pretty into activating that Field of Ruin.
We see Grape Shot for 1, cast on the Snapcaster Mage from Bryant. And there's a land, Misty Rainforest. No pass. Now Gibbons has some end step plays. He's going to go ahead and mill over 2 with a Thought Scour. He mills over another Lightning Bolt.
Ooh, was that Surgical Extraction picked up?
Yes, it was.
All right. We can say goodbye to those grape shots pretty soon,
Well,
I think.
if there's a Snapcaster Mage, Ryan, we could say goodbye to Grape Shot and Empty the Warrens.
Yeah, those are both in the graveyard, huh?
Yeah, that's too many things to say goodbye to.
Yeah, this one is all but over, I believe.
Yeah, I don't think I don't know that he has the Snapcaster Mage. He may just have the Surgical.
Sure.
However, as we saw happen to Caleb Shear earlier, he lost a game that way.
Yeah, no cards that win the game in my deck anymore. And there's not really a pressure on Gibbons to proactively surgical here. You can wait until Cook's end step. Know this will not be a turn that matters with one of the other Storm cards. If he does not have Snapcaster Mage, you can only surgical one Storm spell or the other.
Yeah.
So you can wait until the end step, hit the one you want to hit, or wait until a bunch of rituals have been cast.
Yeah, sometimes on the combo turn, it's really clear which one Bryant is setting up for, so you wait until... It's a bit of a game of chicken, but it still is pretty good. Wait until he's at that point. You know, that the ritual that's going to bring him up to 4 mana for empty, and then you just surgical the empty.
Right.
More cantrips. Bryant has gone through almost his entire playset of Opts and his playset of Serum Visions.
You got to figure he has a pretty nice hand.
Yeah, 6 lands. He's really playing the slow, which is typically nice. Now, the surgical is going to change a lot. Thought Scour from Ted. Mills over land, Cryptic Command, and draws.
And there is a counter squall in the holdings.
Yeah, Bryant's down to 8. You got to start. Snapcaster Rage might be lethal in a bunch of ways, and it's there. I think he just picked it up. And Snapcaster, he's not going to go for the Snap Surgical plan. It looks like he's just going to go for the Snap Bolt plan. I don't mind that either. Sends Bryant down to 5.
Yeah, I'm interested in just winning the game.
Yeah, Bryant remands the Lightning Bolt. So not down to 5. Bryant stays at 8.
Yeah, despite having access to counter squall, that's not really worth a fight.
Yeah, and I actually want to say some real patience on Ted's side to not go for the double surgical play there, because really, like, in this event that Bryant has remand, does not have remand, probably Bolt and Surgical both win, but in the event that he does have remand, this looks a lot better than a single surgical would have.
Right. And the game is just not played out in a way where Gibbons was going to lose the game up to this spot.
Right.
So you just get to hold on to that card.
A Braid from Bryant takes care of the Snapcaster Mage. Oh, and I see why Ted wanted this. He has Collective Brutality and at least 1 Counter Squall, so that actually was just all burn.
It's a lot of damage.
We'll see if he looks at hand. He chooses not to escalate. We see Remand Pieces.
Can I
Past
look
in
at
Flames,
your graveyard?
Ritual. Ooh.
Yeah, so in this hand here, these cards are all fine. I mean, you leave the rituals behind.
Yeah, he actually is going to take Remand, which that does mean now that the Remand's gone, if he finds another Snapcaster where he can go for the surgical line again.
Right.
And from Bryant, we see Pieces of the Puzzle. Ted says, no, Counter Squall. Go to 6.
I love that Ted's just holding on to the surgical extraction.
Yeah.
He just got this 0 mana effect that says the game's already over, and he just gets to win it a different way while that's happening.
He's got Counter Squall Bolt in hand.
It's a good holding.
So if that's true, do you think it's still a little strange to me they didn't escalate the brutality?
I mean, if your cards are all good.
Okay, I'm trying to win too much.
Are you trying to turn the surgical into 2 damage? Because I think that the surgical is a good safety valve in this hand.
Yeah, okay, I see. Stop trying to win, just start, yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's really just...
We're still playing, even though we're close, we're still playing defense.
Yeah, you're Mr. Don't write down your opponent's life total. You're trying to tell me how to cast.
I don't know. Once I start telling me I have to do it, I don't know how this works. I thought you told me we're supposed to be caring, so I was trying to care. It's confusing.
Yep.
That's why we try to not play decks that do this.
A for effort, pal.
Look. I either want to only care about your life total or care about it not at all.
Yeah, is the knob at 0 or 1?
Yeah. This whole changing game plans thing's weird.
You see some thorough perusing of Bryant Cook's graveyard by Ted Gibbons. Just thinking about what he knows about cards in Cook's hand, whether there's something really juicy to Surgical here that just breaks this turn up.
Yeah, I mean, you can always just Surgical a Past in Flames out of the yard, too, if you're really worried about the graveyard. And he'd want to do it now before Bryant, or soon here before Bryant has enough mana to start doing things with it. Interesting.
And still having access to the counter Squall.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
not
yeah.
huge pressure to execute with that.
Pyreticus Vine, and it's another Past in Flames from Bryant out of the hand. And that would have been the worry. Unless he's going to counter Squall here as well.
Yeah, well, first he's hitting Desperate Ritual with this Surgical.
Okay.
Then there's only however many Pyretic Rituals are still in the graveyard to gas back up. Bryant just with 2 mana left over. And you can counter the Past in Flames, or you can just even counter Squall a Ritual out of the graveyard.
Oh, he's going to he's going to counter Squall the Ritual out of the yard? I guess because if he was just going to counter Squall this Past in Flames, he most likely would not have Surgical there.
Right. And are there multiple Pyretic Rituals? I know that he has some Manamorphosis towards the bottom. He used 2 of those to empty earlier in the game. And I want to say that the Pyretic Ritual pass was the first ritual of that kind this game.
Okay, Pyretic Ritual goes up to 3 red. Is Bryant's graveyard just non-functional here?
He has some redraws off of Manamorphose, but I think he has to hit something off of them.
Got a Grape Shot that's castable. He has 2 Manamorphoses. He'll cast a Manamorphose. You know, I thought Ted had another counter Squall in hand. Maybe not.
I mean, he's still not at a point where he has to counter anything.
It's still just 3 mana. 3 mana, 3 mana.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Brian says, yeah, he kept the mana the same. Yeah, I see what Ted's doing.
I mean, what Bryant can do from here is cast a cantrip and then Grape Shot for 9. Ted survives that.
That's a really patient play on Ted's side. I respect it. That's nice. Yeah, Grape Shot for 9 looks to be the end of this road. Ted goes to 6 and gets to keep his counter Squall.
Yep. And he'll be untapping with that plus Cryptic Command.
And then he'll bolt Bryant on step, sending Bryant Cook down to 3.
Yep. Any Lightning Bolt or Snapcaster Mage is lethal from here. Meanwhile, he has 2 counter spells to sit on.
Yeah, one of them deals 2 damage.
Right.
Relevantly. He's got 2 cards in hand. Counter Squall, and it looks like Cryptic Command. All right. That's a nice second one.
Yes.
You see, he lines it up. Here's my 2. Here's my 4. Serum Visions for Bryant Cook.
It's a little bit of concern with how many lands Cook controls about just being able to Grape Shot for 6.
Yeah, that would be the concern.
You can't really start a counter war over a cantrip because of that.
Yeah.
How much mana Cook has, and he does have a few cards in hand.
Looks like they're making sure that the game state is okay here. Oh, they think they're confirming they counted the right storm count.
Okay. It's
like they might have missed the surgical?
Yeah, it's certainly possible when your opponent casts spells to miss some things on the storm turns.
And storm can't actually be missed. Once you resolve the trigger has to make the correct amount of copies.
Yeah, there's no partial resolution.
Yeah, so if it's undercounted, you can't say, oh, my opponent must have missed some storm. That's not cool.
Yeah, you can't resolve part of an ability.
Right.
The game does not allow for this.
Looks like we'll let you know when they've agreed upon the correct game state here. And what the result is of that.
And this is kind of a big deal, too. Like, 1 point of life can be a difference maker here.
Yeah.
We're already in a position where Gibbons probably doesn't want to crack this polluted delta if he can help it.
Yeah. So what has happened here, it sounds like, is they have miscounted the storm. On top of that, it may have been miscounted by multiple numbers. And if that's the case, I believe they're going to talk to the head judge about a proper resolution to that. And it makes sense. So the storm was for 9. But if they go back and now say the storm was for 11 or for 12, if you missed 3 of them, it likely would have changed Ted's entire play pattern. And maybe what he's wondering is if he gets any relief from that situation. That's going to be a question that the head judge is going to have to address.
Yeah, this is way over my head in terms of how to rule as a judge.
Ted certainly has an argument of, hey, if I'd known the storm was at 12 instead of 9, I'd have done something different. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good argument in terms of just like, I empathize with that as a human being.
Yeah.
I don't know what it means in terms of floor policy.
Yeah, so what we're going to have to then do, the judge will probably discuss with both players what they were aware of, what they weren't aware of, the fact that there was storm being maintained by one player, and when we know the ruling to this, we'll come back to it. And a lot of that is going to be a decision that the judge is going to have to determine based on talking to the players.
Right. And kind of the way it played out, I don't know, because both storm cards were available in the graveyard, I can't say to a certainty that there was a better way to surgical there.
Yeah,
now,
I mean,
casting the counter squall instead of surgicaling could have been the play.
Right. And I think the one thing he might have wanted to do was when there's the ritual on the stack, and there was one card in Bryant's hand, he may have just wanted to surgical the Past in Flames right then. Because, like, saying, hey, the only card I lose to...
Was there a Past in Flames already in the graveyard this game? And then, you kept saying it,
but
I don't remember one entering the graveyard there. I know
if there isn't,
one there was, because
okay.
he just emptied the Warrens earlier. He didn't have a Past in Flames turn.
All right, so then, okay, fair enough. Then that's not available.
I don't think that was ever available.
Yeah, you're right. That was the previous game.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can't make that play. Fair enough. Yeah, and that's why he wouldn't necessarily want to counter-squall that Past in Flames, because then just next turn it would happen again.
Yeah.
So trying to remove all the rituals that's probably it. That's going to make a lot more sense.
Yeah, but a higher storm count makes leaving the grave shot there pretty dicey.
Yeah, at some point you would have wanted to do that, but then again there would have been goblins. I don't know. It's really hard to say. The hard part is events have happened, so I don't know how reversible it is. The judge will determine that, like how much he can fix the game state. Also speaking to players as far as, okay,
why was this
missed? Was there intent? And he'll really have to talk to both players to figure that part out.
Yeah. It sounds like things might be wrapping up.
We
haven't heard just what happened just yet. Notably, if you do surgical the grape shot, you find yourself in a position where you're on draw. You still have Cryptic Command in hand. That buys you a turn against goblins if he still has other answers to goblins in his deck, or a redraw to Lethal Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, but that makes sense. So the first thing the judge had to decide was whether or not to rewind back to the point or to just play from where they are. So the judge has determined that the rewind is not possible, that too much has been taken place since then, and the game will continue from where it was.
Right.
So that's where the game will be resumed. We'll head back to the match. I'm assuming some penalties may have been assessed to the players, but the penalties, at the point the judge determined it was not... There's not it was as the intent was not to deceive. It's not a DQable offense. So that's not going to happen. As far as penalties, we'll let you know when we know on that. But for the match, play is going to resume from the point that we left them, with that current board state. With that, we'll head back down to the table. So they will continue from here.
All right. Yeah. So now we have some kind of spell on the stack.
Yeah, and also they determined that though Storm was improperly resolved, they're not going to correctly resolve the Storm. They're not going to drop Ted to 4 here.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing frequently if a number of turns have passed, you can't just say, your life total is 1 now,
Oh, hey, this bolt's good, Yeah.
All right, and it looks like it was an empty the Warrens for 2, and Gibbons decided to Cryptic Command 1 copy of it.
Okay. Did not counter-squall the other copy. And we go back over to Ted. It's got Bryant at 3.
Yeah, so the counter-squall, that still covers Past in Flames out of the graveyard.
Yeah.
And just with 2 goblins, this is not lethal very quickly.
Tassiger from Ted.
That's a nice pickup.
Yeah, he wants to Can he delve away enough trash to get to Tasigur ability into a winner?
He has too much. There's like surgical in there.
Yeah.
I suppose getting Cryptic Command is a winner. There's a lot of things that do win from here, but even just attacking with the Tasigur is quite good already.
Okay. Bryant starts the turn here. He's going to draw, looks like, into a Grape Shot. We're going to have to count. Yeah, he opts into Grape Shot to start the turn. Now he swings with 2 goblins. One's blocked, one deals damage. Ted drops to 5. Clock is correct. It was stopped at the judge call.
One of them is Grape Shot. There's Gifts on Given, too. This hand is a lot. There's 2 Grape Shots.
Oh, that's just going to...
I'm pretty sure Bryant has this one. And
well, you can... No, Grape Shot.
You can counter-squall one of these copies.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if he had another castable spell in between, but...
Counter-squalls one. So both players are going to go to 1 here.
Well, I mean, the Tasigur cleans up from here if this is all that happens this turn.
Does Bryant have another card he could have cast? He does not! Ted gets it!
Wow.
With both players at 1, the counter squall wins it. Yeah, Bryant had a Gifts Ungiven and another Empty the Warrens. With 3 mana, neither was castable. So both players go to 1, but the counter squall is going to win it for Ted.
Yeah, that stuff is just too expensive. And I don't believe that he had the mana to attempt a Gifts Ungiven and then try to win from there. I think the Storm would be 1 shy. You only cast 1